What's going on, Javier Lobby? It's your boy Javier Javier with the Javier Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. No intro this time. If you're new to the channel, you like politics, religion, and culture, all that I ask, if you hit that subscribe button below, if you hit the bell, you get notified of all my future videos. So welcome to the Javier Lobby. Please, thanks. Now, this video, I want to get into something specific. I want to ask you what my skin color tells you about me. I want to talk about black leaders and race in America specifically, and the issues that we face when it comes to such a sensitive topic. I've done my best in the past to try to make an argument on a level that could be received from mostly anybody intelligent enough to grasp simple concepts. I want to take another stab at it, but I also want to make an argument that is coherent and actually accomplishes something. So, if I walk into a building, what is it about my skin color that would tell you about me? Do I play basketball? Am I a martial artist? Do I not have a father? Am I a lawyer? I mean, yada, yada, yada. You can go on and on and on. And you could play this guessing game about what it is about my skin color that defines who I am as a person. It is that exact question that makes me wonder, what do we really mean when we say the black community, the black vote, black problems, black issues? From my experience, I've noticed, and I've met people from all over, I've met people from Africa. I've met people from up north, from the West Coast, East Coast, South Coast, it don't matter what coast. And one thing that I realized is there is no real way to summarize black culture. There are black people who grew up in the suburbs who don't listen to the same music as black people that grew up in the projects. There are black people who are in college. There are black people who are not. There are black people with so many different experiences, wants, needs, and values. Black conservatives, black liberals, black libertarians, you name it. And I have a hard time understanding this language that we use in America called the black vote. What does that even begin to say about black people itself? Well, you could actually say that when people say something about black people, what they really mean is a consensus. There are statistics that back up that majority of black people are more likely to go through certain experiences than other races, or to experience certain livelihoods, or however you want to summarize it. Well, I can accept that as a premise, but the problem with that is, even if black people experience some of the same things, we all filter it through different minds, and we allow it to impact us differently. So we come to different conclusions, even though we might have similar experiences in certain places. Now, when it comes to this ideology, I find that it's very harmful and not productive, which brings me to black leaders. Black leaders, for some reason, we in the black community, or black people in America, have adopted this mindset where we need black leaders, people to represent us, to speak for us, to speak on our behalf. This is not me to beat down on black leaders and people who have stepped up to fight on behalf of African American rights, or black people's rights, or people of color rights. I really do think that if you are coming from a good place and trying to help people, then I take my hat off to you, and I hope that you continue your work to actually help people. The issue that I have, and I want to put this caveat in there, this is not me declaring you as my enemy. This is me trying to have a genuine conversation about where we're headed and the ideas that we accept in this country when it comes to race. Let's take police brutality, for example. If there is racism, which we all know racism exists, then therefore it only means that, of course, there has to be racist cops somewhere. And that racism can show its ugly head at times. And let's say it leads to the shooting of an unarmed black man that is unjustified. I would argue that, yes, we need to seek justice, and we need to be vigilant to root out racism in anywhere in society where it can be damaging to people of color or even to white people. We don't want people committing horrible acts against white people, Hispanics, Asians, on the basis of their color. And we would want to rid that from our society. The problem is, what happens when we start to find injustice in places that it don't exist? Can we have a reasonable conversation and explain why this is not one of those cases without being seen as covering up for the man or for white people or making excuses for the injustice throughout history, yada, yada, yada? You know the conversations. We have to be able, as adults, to talk about these things in a way that is productive, open-minded, and it allows for some nuance. Now, black leaders, in my opinion, have their priorities totally screwed up. Take police brutality, as we were just talking about, and try to compare it to other issues that black people face in America. And I'm using that word lightly. Black people face in America. Where on the list does that actual problem fall? Because by the looks of it, police brutality is at the top of that list. But black people face so many other issues that are so much deadlier and so much more painful and dire that we should be putting our energy on that. I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on police brutality. What I'm saying is we should either have that same amount of energy or more for issues that are bigger to black people that actually cost lives. I agree that, black fathers in the home is one of those issues that really should take precedent. We could talk about a lot of medical problems that black people face that kill us, that it just seems like the priorities are not in place. There's nothing wrong to say that. We have to have these conversations to try to figure out what are the big issues, what should we tackle, how fast should we tackle them so we can move on to other issues and get those taken care of as well. And we have to have that conversation in a genuine manner to actually get something accomplished. I don't feel like black leaders are incentivized to do that. I think that they are incentivized to push the racism narrative as much as possible because that is what the hot topic is, and it actually mobilizes people and get them out on the streets and get action going forward. Now, we talk about this issue of representation. We got black leaders, we got black judges, we got black lawyers, we got black politicians, black police officers. We have plenty of them. And yet it's not enough. And you would think that, okay, well, once we had the first black president, you think that milestone was reached and somehow people would feel like we've gotten to a certain place. But yet it wasn't enough. It's even to the point where we have to celebrate Kamala Harris as being, a milestone achiever. But yes, she is the first woman of color to actually inhabit or be in possession of the vice presidency. Okay, cool. Her skin color, should it matter? Let's replace Kamala Harris with Candace Owens, for example. Would you still feel the same way if Candace Owens was in that position versus Kamala Harris? Now, this argument is the one that I want to hammer home. People make the argument that we need more representation of people of color in order to make decisions that will ultimately impact people of color, that only people of color can actually understand, right? So what happens when that representation comes in the form of Candace Owens? What happens when that representation comes in the form of Jesse Lee Peterson or somebody like Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks? The woke people, the people on the left, the leftists will instantly tell you that's not what we mean by representation. Because they know as well as anybody else knows, ideas is what matters the most. It's not your skin color. It's not what gender you are. It's not your experience. It matters what you actually believe and what you plan to enact. So a white dude could fight for certain people's rights better than the people who are a part of that group if he has the right intentions and the right set of skills to actually pull it off. And it could be the other way around. Black person could actually fight for the rights of Asians or Hispanics. It doesn't have to be exclusive to a specific race. So we all know that argument falls apart as soon as you actually look at it for what it is. Now, I'm hoping I'm making myself clear enough for no one to take ill offense to what I'm actually saying. I also want to point out that I am not against people speaking up for injustice. I am not against people fighting racism. I am not against people, standing up for the little guy. I'm a black person. My family and friends are black. And it's not to say, oh, these are my token black people. I'm a black person. I've been through experiences, and sometimes I've experienced racism myself. And if I've ever come off as not being genuine or at least sensitive to the issues that black people face in America, I apologize. But I do my best to try to intellectually think through these issues so that we can approach them in a strategic manner and actually get something accomplished, worth accomplishing. Now, I want to make this last point, and I think we can wrap it up. This is one of those videos where I'm going to, I talk a little bit because I think these issues are worth talking about. Now, when it comes to black people dealing with certain problems like education or the history of slavery and Jim Crow and all of these things that has affected black people to this day, what is it that you want? It can't be representation because you have representation and therefore it's still not enough. Okay, let's make the claim that it's police brutality, which I don't think is as high on the list. And I think David Silverman tried to make this argument, and I think that he's somehow characterizing it in a way that comes off not necessarily receptive. And it may just be one of those issues that you could never say it properly to actually get your point across. And maybe I might fail at this as well. And I accept that. There's just certain topics in the world that are so sensitive that you can never really touch the right buttons in order to make the changes that need to be made. But if we are going to turn this thing around and actually figure out what it is we should be fighting for, I would implore you that you work with people that you disagree with and actually see your opponent as someone who actually has an open mind and really wants to make change. I'm willing to do that with people I disagree with on the left. I'm willing to do that with people I disagree with on the right. We have in the black community, and I'm using that lightly, people like Charlemagne the God, for example, on The Breakfast Club. There are certain parts of our culture that people will claim to want to help black people, but yet they still support and promote certain lifestyles and decisions that are negative and actually bad for the black community. I feel it's important that we call people out on this. Now, I bring up Charlemagne the God because, for example, he's always talking about helping the black community, informing the black community, making them better. But I'll give you an example when it came to Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine was snitching, and apparently the black community found a big problem with this. Not everybody in the black community, but it was a big issue. On The Breakfast Club, they actually criticized, and they had people on to criticize Tekashi 6ix9ine for snitching. Okay, if that's a street code, I understand. I know a little bit about the streets, right? But it's not something that's actually helpful to the black community. For example, I know I keep saying for example, apologies. I like that word. But snitching in the black community is harmful. Not snitching is harmful because you're allowing the criminals, the same people in your community that's hurting the people who look like them, to get away with crimes because we have this unspoken rules of engagement that somehow you're supposed to do everything you can to keep the bad guys out of jail. Now, I'm not for black people going to jail. I would hope that we all can live in a way that we would avoid that outcome. But I would also make the argument that we have to get some sense of doing the right thing regardless of the consequences, and teaching people that it's okay to do the right thing regardless of the code. So when you have people like that saying that they're trying to help black people, but yet promoting certain lifestyles and certain rules of engagement that don't necessarily help black people, I start to doubt their motives. And I think somebody like Charlemagne the God is intelligent enough to know this. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't do things for the black community and actually help people. I respect that aspect of him. A person can do 100 good things, and you still have to call out that one flaw. And I would urge him to keep doing the same thing that he's doing and helping black people, and maybe tweak this here, that, and there. So that's fine. And I would expect you to do the same thing to me. I've talked long enough, and hopefully this video will help somebody answer the question, what does my skin color tell you about me, black leaders, and race? And I want you to write in the comments below what you thought about this video. Was it too long? Did I touch on certain points? Could I have been clearer? Did I miss something that I should have brought up? I mean, I would expect to have this conversation many times over, and hopefully with other guests and on other podcasts and YouTube channels. But this is just me trying to approach it in a way that I hope is receptive to many people watching this. So if you know anyone who could benefit from this video, anyone who's thinking about these things or might disagree with me, even those who agree with me and haven't found a way to actually put it in words, I implore you to share this video to as many people as you possibly can, like this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, support the show. And for the rest of you who want to take it a step further, you can find me at www.patreon.com/the Javier Any contribution that you can help with, I greatly appreciate it. Without you, this show could not be. So thanks again, and till next time, I'm out.
1 in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling.